I've been dreaming on in my head like I've seen it. A life worth living is a life with.
There's no shoot without roots, and roots go deep in any tree.
In case you're wondering how we got here, let's start at the beginning.
Hi everyone once again, and karibuni sana. My name is Wambua, Kisilu Wambua. I am the founder of PENDAKUJUA, a thought space that seeks to shed light through science and history. We mainly focus on an African target, since our continent ranks the lowest in scientific literacy, and also we are trying to promote African stories, from all the way from African scientific aspects to mythologies, all the way to religion, culture, history, everything Afro. Yeah, so that's basically what we do at PENDAKUJUA. And pleases me to say that so far I've been told that it's East and Central Africa's biggest thought space, scientific thought space. Yeah, we're hoping to grow into Africa's answer to, scientific thought spaces, the global scientific thought spaces, Kamakina, National Geographic, Scientific American, and whatnot. Yeah, so that's me. That's PENDAKUJUA.
Thank you very much. And may I say, it is through PENDAKUJUA that I also developed this interest. Hey, me and history are not really best of friends,
That's
but
an honor.
through
That's an honor.
your post, yeah.
That's an honor hearing that from you.
Yeah, through your post, at least I started being like, oh yeah, there's information out there that I really need to know. So, would you like to introduce the topic we're tackling today, the erosion of African pre-colonial history?
Yeah, that will be my pleasure. So here's the thing. I used this as a blab some time ago. If you ever saw any of the posts, I said that African memoirs, African history, African stories span hundreds of thousands of years. To be more specific, it's at 200,000 years. But up until the last 500, we hear next to nothing about that. That's close to about 99.8% of African history is what we'd consider lost. And I quote this because it's not really lost. But from the past 500, that's the most significant thing that happened the past 500 years ago, was the exploration of the European to the rest of the globe. That's when they started documenting our history, and up until today, it's what we hear, their version of our history, our stories, our mythologies, our beliefs, our romances. So I think it's so where lies this 99.98% of our history? What lies beyond 500 years ago? What did we do? Because we know that we were there. We are proof that we existed long before the arrival of the white man. Africa has been hailed as the continent, as the birthplace of the human race. We usually refer to it as the Garden of Eden. So from 200,000 years ago up to until today, those are like countless stories, infinite number of hopes and dreams. And I think it's time that we reorient ourselves to anza kuzitafuta, and we need to tell them. We need to find those stories. We need to tell them. Yeah. Check, if you go on the mainstream here, you'll find that not many, you'll have to dig deep in order to find a single African content. And no, we don't want that. We want to promote our stories, our culture, our heritage. Yeah.
I actually particularly endorse that, because let me say this from the perspective of the non-expert. Yeah, so what I interact with on social media mostly, the only time you ever get to hear of African history is when you're hearing things like Black History Month, you're hearing things like the slavery periods, like it's always the dark things, yeah? And then you get to wonder, okay, so where are the good things? Where are the things? And especially considering that, Africa is considered the cradle of humankind. I mean, there's evidence supporting that. Anthropology is supporting that. Science is supporting that. So why is it that history doesn't seem to acknowledge that? And I even remember when I wanted to prepare for this live, and I asked you for some resources, yeah? So that single link is only where I got, let's say, somewhat detailed explanation of what African pre-colonialism looked like. You go on YouTube, you try to search it. What you get is geographical analysis or something of how Africa looked before it was subdivided again. But there's really nothing about the advancements, about the place of the African person in even evolution. Yeah? Yeah, so I think that's where we need to start. Like, personally, I'm one of those people who are still very curious to know like what lies beyond, what else has been presented in an alternative way that we are not really, you know, we've been understanding it all wrong.
Yeah, so that actually it's a continental case. Every single African can relate to that. Our education system, tukianzia hapo, it's the most, what can I use? It's the most Eurocentric one that I've ever seen. Because you said, actually, when I was preparing to this for this, one of my friends texted me and was like, "Yo, African stories to Nanzanga, like the Berlin Conference in 1884, where a bunch of white men met up in a room to divide a foreign land, to divide Africa amongst themselves, and not a single African was present in that meeting." Yeah, so that's where most of our textbooks, the Afro stories begin. And that was in the Berlin Conference of, I think, 1884. Yeah. And from there, we also learn very flimsily about, what is this? Say the migration of the River Lake Nilotes from the Nile up, going like it's the boring kind of history.
Yeah.
If I may be so blunt, because there are countless. Personally, I'm also mesmerized. I continue learning this every day, and I'm mesmerized by the amount of history that we were never taught, that is never mainstream. Because first and foremost, we need to start from the top. Obviously, the birth of humankind was right here in Africa, and more specifically, right here in East Africa. Kenya on itself, actually, Kenya is considered, in the scientific community, Kenya is considered the cradle of humankind, or better yet, in the more pop sensitive fashion, the Garden of Eden. Kenya is, like, quite literally, quite subjectively, the Garden of Eden, for it is here that that first man and woman took their steps. Kenya alone, in archaeological studies, Kenya alone tells the whole story of human evolution. Kenya, the modern day Kenya tells the whole story of human evolution from 200,000. About the Homo species. We begin with the Homo species some 7 million years ago, all the way to from Homo species, Homo habilis, the able man. He used the first tools. The first tools actually in Kariandusi, you can still find them to date. All the way to Homo erectus, the most famous Homo erectus skeleton. It's a near complete skeleton. It lies in the National Museum of Kenya. It's called the Turkana Bull. It's found right here in Kenya, in Turkana County, modern day Turkana County. All the way to, from Homo erectus is when we started. From Homo erectus, then came Homo sapiens, us, the wise man, so to say. And from there, it's the first, we do know the first woman who took her steps. Her name, in the scientific community, she's called mitochondrial Eve, paying homage to the first woman, the biblical first woman, who is Eve. So we call her mitochondrial Eve. And mitochondrial Eve was a woman to be reckoned with. Personally, if I could build a time machine and go back to meet just to one event, I'd go back and meet her, because she within her body, within her BDNA, she forged a civilization altering species. You know, humankind currently we are at the top of the food chain. We are masters of the entire planet. We have the power to terraform our planet within our needs. Only in in 2019, it was reported that human-made objects now outweigh the number of all living things on Earth. Point is, we have overrun the planet. It's now within our abilities of creation and destruction. And this exactly, and this was from one woman, one black woman. Her name was mitochondrial Eve. And yeah, mitochondrial Eve 200,000 years ago. And from her descended every other person, be it Chinese, be it Mexican, be it the white people who say, it's their story.
I was quite amused when I watched that part of that documentary that even the white man who claims to be, there's a time at which the African race was considered uncivilized. It was considered not even part of the cultured society. It's always been that the white man is ahead of the African. And then now to realize that the role is reversed, really. The African person was there. And now every other human comes from there. I mean, that's impeccable. That's the history we're not taught.
That's the top, that's the cream, I'd say, the cream, the topping of the cake. And so to speak, descending from mitochondrial Eve, she was not a lone case. She didn't have this ability all to herself, because the African woman, the black woman, of course, descended from this woman, this mitochondrial Eve. The black woman is the only human that carries the Eve gene. The Eve gene is this ability to forge a new people, a new race, a new everything. It's not even in the African men, in the black men, it's only in the African women. Yes,
I'm an African woman and I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's the Eve gene. You have the ability to forge every other conceivable human race. It's only the black woman who can do that. Case in play, you've seen that some quote unquote, if I dare say, a mix up of these traits. You find an African with blonde hair, natural blonde curly hair. Yes, and say blue eyes, exactly. You see, that's a thing only the African woman can do. The white woman, the Asian woman, the Mexican woman cannot do that. Only the whites, only the black woman can do that, because she has this Eve gene. She has this ability to forge even an unimaginable species you've never, not a species, but a race you've never seen. Yeah, it's only the African woman who has that ability. She carries it in her body. Yes, you do.
Wow.
Yeah. So.
Okay.
So descending from 200,000 years, we go back fast forward to 70,000 years ago. The cognitive revolution, where we quote unquote invented communication, started speaking, understanding each other's, and from there we started creating stories. Stories are the most powerful things known to humans. Yes, we usually say that it's our intelligence that the hallmark of our species, but no. I usually say it's the stories we believe. Our ability to create and believe these stories is what makes us powerful. It's what makes us masters over all the other species. Yeah. Yeah, so that was the cognitive revolution 70,000 years ago. And then fast forward to about 45,000 years ago, when Homo sapiens started moving out of continental Africa. They went all the way to Australia, North and South America, Europe, where, because of this is where the difference came. Light intensity, this is how the different races were born, okay, according to the skin color, at least. You see that the cradle of humankind, East Africa, is along the tropical region. Yeah, so from there, the tropical region are sunny throughout the year. So we had dark skin. We developed dark skin to quench the sunlight, so that it cannot be harmful to our organs, to our skin. But moving away from the tropics, that's the north and the south, we find that it's mostly cloudy throughout the year. So very little sunlight seeps through. So they evolve a lighter skin, so that they can drink the little sunlight that was available. And actually, that's all there is to races. There's nothing. I don't know. It's
It's
only
nothing
like
major. There's no
exactly,
genetic supremacy
exactly.
or whatever
Thank you, thank
superiority.
you. Yeah, because it's only
Uh-huh.
our
It's
bodies need
it's
to
literally
synthesize.
skin deep.
Thank you. Pun very much intended, but yes, 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 it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
So,
Okay. So
mhm.
sorry. I wanted to interject a little bit and
Yeah, yeah.
kind of bring into perspective the reason why we're having this conversation to begin with. Because I think
Mhm.
you've mentioned an aspect of it. You've mentioned the cognitive.
Revolution.
Yeah, the cognitive revolution. It's mostly, you've said it's mostly the stories that allow us to believe, that allow us to even, it's not really intelligence, you know.
Yeah.
And in the current society where you're facing things like, I don't know if this is a good way to throw around this word, imposter syndromes. Growing up African, growing up, let me not bring up the aspect of growing up female, but growing up African, you always tend to look at yourself as inferior. So by having these conversations and by, starting to take pride in our history and starting to take pride in our, what is this word? Basically, the history, the stories behind it, we start to see that there's something to be proud of. We are capable, we are able. So it's mostly a matter of pride and mostly a matter of believing that we are actually as good, even dare I say better, like,
Yes.
so that we don't shortchange ourselves,
Yeah.
With Black History Month, let me relate it to, because that mostly applies to African Americans, they had the biggest kind of social struggle for their place in society,
Yes.
having to go, and it's still going on, having to go through that and say that we've contributed to American history. We've contributed to the development. So why are we still being treated as less? But now coming to Africa where, you don't really experience that diversity as much, but still you look up to, going to, now, as you've mentioned, earlier man moved to the other parts of the continent. You look forward to moving there as a way for you to advance, as a way for you to be better,
Yeah.
You don't see any value or any pride by understanding your history and seeing how you're capable of much, much more.
Yeah.
So I think it's important to understand how pre-colonial history is being eroded so that you don't really fall into that trap of thinking that there is not much there.
I do concur with that, and yeah, dare I say most. I say that one of the biggest problems that we did have, why our culture was so taken away. I can say a written form of language, our own written form of language. We did, yes. First and foremost, we did have a form of language. I may use the example of the Kushite Empire. That's modern day North and South Sudan. Um, but you see, they had inscription written on clay tablets and whatnot. But once again, we find that it's been eroded, not eroded, but it's hard to decipher. It's yet to be deciphered what they meant, what their thoughts were, what their dreams, their art, their exactly. But the other thing I'd say is the looting of the European imperial nations, the imperial powers, starting from 500 years ago. They took away our culture, they took away our art. We still talk of the looted treasure that adorn the European museums, from London to the Louvre in Paris. Yeah, and if I may say, it's take away a people's culture, you take away who they are, obviously. And if a person doesn't know who they are, what they are, who they descended from, and you've taken away their aspect, their sense of living. There's a famous TED talk by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. I think currently she's the most renowned author in Africa. It's called The Danger of a Single Story. She said, we do know that the world, the stories told today are so Eurocentric. So she did say that we need to start telling different stories. Actually, the TED talk, the danger of a single story, how impactful it can be, how negative it can be to countless multitudes. So, for example, she said, start the African, states the story of colonization, not with the arrival of the white man, but with the failure of the African states. Yeah, you see, we do know that the main reason why Africa was conquered by the European powers is not because of inferior weaponry. It's not because they had superior intellect, whatnot, but it's because we were not united as a people. We were still divided into states and sub-states. I usually avoid calling them tribes because they were not. They were nations in their own regard. They were states. Because even
They
a
were
different
systems.
exactly they were I avoid. I think tribe also came along with the white man so that they can discern different types of
Ethnicity.
people. Exactly, but if you if you look at the pre-colonial civilizations, the lost civilizations of Africa, we have the the Azania civilization of East Africa. Actually, that's where Tanzania gets its name. Azania was this civilization, I think, even before the Christian era, it existed, and the Greeks wrote extensively about it, about how gold, ivory, and timber came from a nation that was south of Ethiopia, south of Sudan. Yeah, so I think telling this, growing up, we didn't have such stories. We didn't have anything about pre-colonial Africa, except maybe by migration of the Bantus from the Congo Basin to such and such stories. But I think
Then it dives into the history of politics, and that's all I knew about history.
exactly, and yes, post-colonial Africa, no, not post-colonial, yeah, post-colonial Africa, independent Africa. Okay, it's not the subject of the talk today, but it's just one bloody, one somber one sad
Sad
one, and
story.
exactly, and that's what we grew up listening to. The coup attempts, assassination of presidents, the civil wars. So
Genocide.
exactly, tell a kid those stories, and they grow up thinking, enyewe hapa
They
kuna
don't
shida.
want.
Exactly,
They
but
don't want
telling
to
them
know their history.
exactly, grow up telling a kid about how mighty the black people were in building the pyramids. Tell them about Mansa Musa, the richest guy who ever was. Grow up telling these kids about Amani Renas, the one-eyed Nubian queen who took down the most powerful empire the world had ever seen, the most powerful army the world had ever seen. That's the Roman Empire. Yeah, so if you tell kids these stories, trust me, they grow up to be great. Because even right now, we can perform a thought experiment. If you think about Africa, is the only landmass that doesn't believe in their stories, in their history, in their mythologies. Ukiangalia, and if I may introduce the topic of religion in this, you see, Africa is the only landmass that doesn't worship their gods. The Europeans, yes, they do worship a Jewish god, but they've changed him so much. Right now, we know, like, Jesus was white. He had blue eyes. He had a fair skin. He had, flowing hair. But
Yeah.
exactly, that
In
was not the
fact,
case.
I had a joke that most African households have a picture of a white man hanging, thinking that it's Jesus.
You see, go to some other tribes, say deep in the Amazon, you'll find them with their own system, their own gods. You go to say the China Far East, you say they are deep into Buddhism and whatnot, because every culture had their own gods. But the moment Africa, we lost touch with our own culture. I wouldn't say gods, because yes, in the African societies, we did have gods.
Here is a commercial break for you due to interruption of services, but don't worry, take this time to digest what you just heard. Leave a comment, leave a question, and yeah, let's
2,000
get back into
years
it.
later.
Hey, yo, what happened?
Ah, ah.
It completely disappeared.
Well, I think finally nimejoin the boomer generation. Shida ya mitambo, it proves to be a
Shida ya
diabolical.
mitambo.
Chinua Achebe,
Mm-hmm.
I think, is the most prolific African writer ever. Not unless someone comes up and challenges him, but for now, he still helms. He did say that until the lion tells his story, the tale of the hunt will always glorify the hunter. Yes.
Until?
The tale of the hunt will always glorify the hunter. Until the lion tells his own story, the tale of the hunt will always glorify the hunter. Yes. And also, we do know that miti haimei bila mizizi. Miti haimei bila mizizi. We can translate this to mean that your history is important if to know who you are and where you're headed to. You know, without your past, you can't know the things. You can't know who you are. You can't do what you are, what you want to do, what you are meant to do, what you are headed for until you invest in your past. That's the only way you can draw a pathway to your future. And I think this is the biggest problem with Africa currently. Yeah, that we lack our heritage, we lack our history.
I think I'd like to support that point on the basis of even in psychology and sociology, you can't really discover your purpose, as people call it, until you make peace with your past. Sometimes you really have it difficult even understanding who you are in the present or what you could be in the future without understanding where you came from. So the same thing applies to history. Without understanding where we came from, what we were capable of, what our architecture, our art was, we will never be able to, expand our boundaries.
Yeah, I can see Mola wrote it quite well. He said, "There's no shoot without roots, and roots go deep in any
Deeper
tree."
than any tree.
Yeah, exactly.
Keep
There's
the
no
comments
shoot
coming.
without roots. So I think we need to reorient ourselves towards Afrocentricity because, as we've discussed, the world is very Eurocentric. So I think it's time we draw back towards Afrocentricity. But it's quite commendable. At least one area that's rising up to the task is the area of art, music, especially. We've seen that Afro music currently is dominating global charts. That was not a thing to be imagined 10, 20 years ago, but right now it's what the global community is jamming to. So I think that's a positive step forward. From there, I think we can spread into other areas. African stories. We need to give our own stories to the world, our own. Currently, once again, a thought experiment. What story has Africa given to the world? What story is African? Originated from Africa, and right now, it's Europeans have their own Cinderella stories. What is our Cinderella story? Yeah, we'll say the story of Black Panther, the story of the Kingdom of Wakanda, but once again it was created again by Stan Lee, a white person, who using white resources. So what is it that yes?
I almost wanted to answer you because I find it kind of offensive that the only stories that originate from Africa are folklore and animal stories. Sungura, those kinds of stories are the only stories that are coming out of Africa. And they have it's hard to put that in the context of human living because the animal kingdom doesn't necessarily function the way humans do.
Yes. Yeah, so yeah, even not stories too, even holidays. What holiday has Africa given to the world? We have Christmas from the Christmas, not Christmas is as such as the birth of Christ, but Christmas is the culture. Santa Claus, white guy with a beard. What is it that Africa has presented to the what holiday began from Africa and is now a global
Spread to the
phenomenon.
world.
Exactly. Not what is it that's African that began in Africa that's now a global phenomenon. Of course, first and foremost is humans. But other than that, what is it that's fictional that's now? Yeah. So that's a challenge I'd like to pose to
Yeah, it is.
anyone that's
Okay.
listening to this. Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, so it's time we began telling more African stories, more African tales, yeah, and embracing our Afrocentricity because we are the mother race. We are the parents of every human who will ever live descended from you, from here right here in Africa. So yes, I think that's
Mitochondrial Eve. I learned something
my
today.
yeah. So yeah, that's something to ponder about, and I think it's time we reorient ourselves towards being Afrocentric. Yeah.
I agree. I definitely do agree. I see that I think we addressed the comments that were sent.
Mhm.
There were no questions per se, so I don't know. I think we can wind up and then sips water. We
Sips
can
water.
wind up and then we can wind up and then set up something well advertised and well prepared for, and that's accommodative for a larger audience so that we can keep having these conversations.
Yes. And more
I
tech
really think
friendly.
this is the way for me to really learn. I'm one of those people who was affected by the textbook definition of history. So it's become really hard over the time to embrace learning about the past because you really don't want to look back at the sad stuff. But
Of course, no
once you
one ever
start to
does.
learn about the empowering things, it becomes much easier. It becomes more enjoyable. Even it's something you can do in your free time. So
Yeah.
yeah,
You can even
yes. You
look
have
at
any
the
closing
you can
remarks?
even look back at the sad you can even look back at the sad aspects of African history more with a bright speck, with a bright eye, because it was just a blip, it was just a stumble. We never felt really stumble to kidogo up, but because our history once upon a time was a colossal one, and our current present generation, our current reality is still can be a colossal one. So yeah, I think we need to dig deep into into looking for African, and I think I can share. I've got quite a number of links. I don't know where I can post them, but I got quite a number of links and books like this I was showing you. It's
Yeah.
The African Civilization by Professor Kihumbo Tairu. Yeah, actually, this book I have yet to see it anywhere on the internet right now. I don't know.
It's nowhere.
It's nowhere. Nimeitafuta, nimekosa. So it makes me think how many more books are lost in
And
time.
are
Kama
around.
history.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
where did you find it? Where would I
Uh,
find it?
Actually, it will. I don't know. Maybe perhaps I can look further into it. I can try perhaps contacting the author because I see he's Kenyan. I'm hoping he's alive. This is a 1974 book. Yeah, and I think I'll get back to you on that. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. For the links, I think what we will do, I'll combine the live videos and then we can post them on YouTube and attach the links for both Geekette and PENDAKUJUA, and then we can
Yes.
just distribute the link for this conversation and for many others that are to come.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
So
Do you have any
to
closing remarks?
uh, I think that's all, and we should purpose to do this more often, because I can see from actually people are engaged. I can see akina Mwalaste wako hapo, and they are contributing too much. Perhaps you can have them on another forum the next time.
Yes,
Yeah.
definitely. I agree.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much for
Yes.
taking us through that.
Yeah, my
It
pleasure.
was wonderful. It was a learning experience for me as well.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, we look forward to more. I think we'll be in communication both on this platform and many others, so that we can plan adequately. Thank you. Thank you for everyone who joined. I think I'll extend my
Yes.
thanks to the people who joined the first live. We really appreciate
Mm-hmm.
the presence. We really appreciate the support. And yeah, we look forward to more. Yes?
Yes, we do. Yes, we do.
Do have yourself a good evening.
Yes, you too.
What do we say? Wakanda? That's fine.
Actually, yeah, you just reminded me. I should have begun this live by, apologizing that, we have to speak in a colonizer's language in order to be understood by our fellow Africans.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the fact that, we have our own Kiswahili, the fact that we have our own Arabic, the two most widely spoken languages in Africa. But no, we have to resort to a subjugator's language. Ndo tuelewane sisi kwa sisi. I think I've been thinking about that, and it's messed up. Yeah.
Okay. Wacha ni kuchallenge for the next 1 minute. Nataka uongee kwa Kiswahili for the next whole minute. Kwa dakika moja inayofuata ongea kwa Kiswahili.
Ndio. Naam. Bara kabisa. Wow.
You're ruining it.
Kiswahili ni changamoto.
Tutajitahidi. Now that's a part of post-colonial history that we rarely address. The fact that English was glorified and Kiswahili and Arabic were rather pushed to the back.
Exactly. And it's even sad that our very own African Union, Africa is the most linguistically diverse continent on earth. We have over 3,000 languages. 3,000 languages, that's 3,000 cultures, 3,000 ways of living. But only one African language is recognized by the African Union, that is Kiswahili. I'm like, yo, what the kind of messed up stuff is that? Only one out of 3,000. It's not fair. It's not. Like we glorify English, Portuguese, Spanish even way than our languages. So I think shouldn't be.
How often would you find someone going online to check how to learn Swahili? It's always how to learn French, how to learn Spanish, how to learn.
Exactly. It's like we understand
more people learning Swahili in linguistic studies because they're just like, wait,
Exactly. It's like we glorify the colonizers' language even ahead, even better than our own mother's tongue. And yeah, that's one way to erode. Yeah, that's one way to erode a people. Yeah, that's one way to.
We are also participating in the erosion, unfortunately.
Yeah, right now. So that's why we should have begun by apologizing to our audience that we are speaking in a colonizer's language. So bear with us.
We apologize.
Yeah.
It's okay. Let me ask to end there.
Asanteni sana for tuning in, and next time we'll share the links. Follow the two accounts that at Geekgate254 at PENDAKUJUA, and we'll do this again next time. And shukran, asanteni sana. So yes, do have yourself a glorious weekend.